What if the rosary hanging quietly on your wall right now, the one you barely notice anymore, is not bringing peace into your home, but silently disturbing it? Before you dismiss that thought, pause for a moment. This is not superstition, this is not fear-mongering, and this is not an attack on the rosary, one of the most sacred devotions in the Catholic faith. What you are about to hear is a warning attributed to Saint Padre Pio, a saint known not for sensational claims, but for his unwavering devotion to truth, repentance, justice, and mercy. Padre Pio consistently guided souls away from curiosity and toward prayer, but he also warned that spiritual realities are not always visible to the human eye. Last week, a woman wrote to us with a troubling story. Her family had been unraveling slowly, almost imperceptibly. Constant arguments over insignificant things, financial strain that seemed to appear without reason, a growing heaviness in their home, an atmosphere she could not explain. Doctors found nothing wrong, counselors offered no clarity, prayer felt dry and distant. After watching one of our previous videos, she examined her bedroom more closely. Hanging near her bed was an antique rosary, black, ornate, undeniably beautiful. She had purchased it months earlier at an estate sale, drawn to its craftsmanship and sense of mystery. She had never thought twice about it. Within days of removing that rosary from her home, she noticed something unsettling, then astonishing. The tension eased, the arguments softened, sleep returned. The home felt lighter. Coincidence? Perhaps. But Padre Pio, the stigmatic saint who could read souls and discern spiritual influences, repeatedly warned that not everything that appears holy is truly sacred. He cautioned that certain religious objects, especially those with unknown origins, could carry spiritual histories that interfere with peace rather than protect it. And what's truly alarming is this: the rosaries most likely to cause concern are often the most beautiful, the most unique, the ones that catch our eye in antique shops, gift stores, or online marketplaces. After hearing this teaching attributed to Padre Pio, you may never look at rosaries the same way again. So stay with me, because the third warning is the one most Catholics ignore today.
Saint Padre Pio was not a man who sought attention, mystery, or extraordinary experiences. In fact, he often begged God to take away the visible signs of his spiritual gifts. Yet, despite his humility and desire for obscurity, the extraordinary found him. People traveled from all over the world to San Giovanni Rotondo, not because Padre Pio advertised miracles, but because miracles seemed to follow him wherever he went. From 1918 until his death, Padre Pio bore the stigmata, the visible wounds of Christ's passion, bleeding continuously for 50 years. These wounds were examined, doubted, and scrutinized, yet they remained unexplained by medical science. For Padre Pio, the stigmata were not a badge of honor, but a silent participation in Christ's suffering, carried with deep obedience and sorrow. Beyond the stigmata, Padre Pio was known for his extraordinary ability to read souls. Penitents often approached the confessional only to hear Padre Pio name sins they had forgotten or tried to hide. This gift was not meant to shame, but to call souls gently yet firmly back to truth and repentance. He saw not just actions, but intentions, wounds, and spiritual struggles hidden beneath the surface. Perhaps most relevant to our reflection today was Padre Pio's profound discernment of spirits and even of objects. Witnesses testified that he could sense spiritual influences attached to certain items people brought him for blessing. At times, he would bless religious objects with tenderness. At other times, he would refuse, sometimes forcefully, warning that what appeared holy did not always come from God.
Padre Pio did not go looking for dark forces or hidden dangers.
On the contrary, he consistently warned against obsession with evil. Yet he understood a crucial spiritual truth. Grace and deception do not always announce themselves clearly. As he once cautioned his spiritual children, not everything that looks holy is truly from God. This insight made Padre Pio deeply cautious with anything considered sacred. He treated sacramentals not as decorations or symbols, but as real instruments of prayer and spiritual influence. He knew that when holy things are misused, distorted, or stripped of their proper intention, they can lose their purpose and become sources of confusion rather than protection. This gift of discernment, quiet, unsettling, and deeply rooted in prayer, would shape Padre Pio's warnings about sacred objects, including one of the most beloved devotions in the Catholic faith, the Rosary.
The Rosary is often seen today as a beautiful religious object, something to hang on a wall, place on a bedside table, or wear as a symbol of faith. But in the spiritual understanding of the Church, the Rosary is far more than an ornament. It is a spiritual weapon, forged not of metal or fire, but of prayer, humility, and trust in God. Each bead of the Rosary forms a chain of prayer that draws the soul toward the Blessed Virgin Mary, who never keeps our prayers for herself, but leads them directly to her Son, Jesus Christ. Through meditation on the mysteries of Christ's life, death, and resurrection, the Rosary becomes a path of transformation, one that has shaped saints, sustained martyrs, and strengthened families for centuries. According to tradition, the Rosary was entrusted to Saint Dominic in the 13th century as a remedy against spiritual confusion and moral decay. Throughout history, this devotion has been associated with remarkable spiritual victories, conversions of hardened hearts, protection in times of war, and renewal in moments when faith seemed fragile. Saints repeatedly describe the Rosary as a lifeline thrown from heaven to souls struggling in darkness. Yet here lies a sobering truth: anything powerful can be misused. A weapon meant for defense can cause harm if handled carelessly. In the same way, the Rosary, when stripped of prayer, intention, and blessing, risks becoming something hollow. When it is reduced to a fashion accessory, a decorative item, or a collector's piece admired only for its beauty, it becomes disconnected from the spiritual purpose for which it was created. Padre Pio warned that sacred objects should never be treated casually. When the Rosary is separated from prayer and the reverence of blessing, it no longer functions as a channel of grace. At best, it becomes spiritually ineffective. At worst, it opens the door to confusion, especially when its origins or prior use are unknown. The danger does not lie in the Rosary itself, but in how it is approached. A Rosary used with faith becomes a shield. A Rosary treated as decoration becomes silent. And when its sacred identity is ignored, it no longer protects, it simply hangs, unseen and unquestioned in the background of our lives. This is why Padre Pio urged vigilance, not fear, reverence, not obsession, when it comes to the sacred things we bring into our homes. One of the most unsettling stories passed down by those who lived near Padre Pio concerns a woman who traveled from Naples to San Giovanni Rotondo, carrying what she believed was a simple act of devotion. Like many pilgrims, she brought a rosary with her, hoping the holy friar would bless it. The rosary appeared ordinary at first glance. Its beads were dark and smooth from age, the crucifix finely crafted. It looked reverent, perhaps even beautiful. As the woman approached Padre Pio and extended the rosary toward him, she expected a brief prayer and a blessing, nothing more. Instead, Padre Pio recoiled. His expression changed instantly, and with an urgency that startled everyone nearby, he said sharply, "Take that thing away from here." The woman froze,
confused and embarrassed. Murmurs spread through the room. This was not how Padre Pio usually treated those who came to him with sincere devotion. Sensing her distress, he softened his tone, but did not change his instruction. He refused to touch the rosary, refused to bless it, and insisted that it be removed immediately.
Later, through careful questioning and guidance, the truth emerged. The rosary had not been purchased from a church or religious community. It had been acquired years earlier from a private collection, passed through hands whose intentions were far from prayerful. Further inquiry revealed that the rosary had been used in occult rituals, deliberately stripped of its Christian meaning and repurposed for practices opposed to the faith, before being disguised once again as a Catholic sacramental. What made this moment so disturbing was not the object itself, but what it revealed. To the woman and to everyone watching, the rosary looked harmless, even holy. Yet Padre Pio, through his gift of spiritual discernment, perceived a reality hidden beneath its appearance. This encounter revealed a profound spiritual principle that Padre Pio often tried to teach. Appearance does not equal spiritual reality. Not everything that looks sacred carries grace. Not every religious object is automatically holy simply because it bears a cross or a familiar shape. Intention, history, and use matter deeply in the spiritual life. Padre Pio's reaction was not driven by fear, but by clarity. He understood that sacred objects are meant to draw souls closer to God, not to carry confusion, distortion, or spiritual residue from past misuse. This single moment left a lasting impression on those who witnessed it, reminding them that discernment is not about suspicion, but about protecting what is truly holy. And it was moments like this that shaped Padre Pio's sober warnings about the objects we welcome into our homes, especially those meant for prayer. Padre Pio was careful to make one thing very clear. Colors, materials, and objects are not evil in themselves. He did not teach fear of the physical world, nor did he encourage superstition. The concern was never about a rosary's color or design alone, but about what lay beneath the surface, its spiritual history. According to Padre Pio, 3 factors matter most when discerning whether a religious object truly serves its sacred purpose: intention, previous use, and spiritual residue. Intention refers to why an object was created or used. A rosary made for prayer, crafted with reverence and used in devotion, carries a very different spiritual weight than one created or handled for purposes opposed to the faith. Previous use also matters. Objects involved in repeated spiritual actions, whether holy or distorted, can become deeply associated with those actions. Padre Pio believed that when a sacred object is deliberately misused, especially in practices contrary to Christian prayer, it can retain what he described as a kind of spiritual residue. This residue is not visible, measurable, or dramatic, but its effects can be quietly disruptive. He referred to this disruption as spiritual interference. Rather than producing overt fear or chaos, spiritual interference subtly affects the atmosphere of prayer. It creates distraction instead of focus, restlessness instead of peace, resistance instead of openness to grace. A simple comparison helps clarify this idea. Prayer is like a clear channel of communication between the soul and God. When interference enters that channel, much like static on a radio signal, the message becomes distorted. The connection feels strained. The prayer itself may still be spoken, but its flow is interrupted. This is why some people experience unease, dryness, or confusion without understanding why, especially when praying near certain objects. Padre Pio taught that this was not something to fear, but something to discern with humility and wisdom. His guidance was never meant to alarm,
but to awaken awareness. Sacred things deserve sacred care. Padre Pio's first and most frequently mentioned caution concerned the completely black rosary. It is important to say this clearly from the beginning. Black itself is not evil. In Catholic tradition, black can symbolize mourning, penitence, and humility. Many perfectly legitimate rosaries are black and used faithfully in prayer. The concern, as Padre Pio explained, arises from how this color has often been appropriated and misused in practices far removed from Christian devotion. Because black absorbs light and conceals detail, it has historically been favored in certain esoteric and occult rituals. Over time, some rosaries, especially antique or second-hand ones, were deliberately repurposed for these practices and later reintroduced into circulation as religious objects. One account, frequently shared among Padre Pio's spiritual children, tells of a woman who suffered from persistent nightmares and an overwhelming sense of despair. Despite regular confession and sincere prayer, her nights were filled with fear, and her mornings brought no rest. She described feeling watched, unsettled, and spiritually drained, especially in her bedroom. Eventually, she traveled to San Giovanni Rotondo seeking guidance. Padre Pio listened quietly, then asked a question that stunned her. "What dark object do you keep near your bed?" Confused, she mentioned an antique black rosary she had purchased months earlier because of its beauty and age. It hung from her bedpost as a reminder to pray. Padre Pio instructed her to remove it immediately. He explained that the rosary had been previously used for purposes opposed to prayer, and that its presence was interfering with her spiritual peace. The woman obeyed, disposing of it respectfully as directed. Within days, the nightmares ceased. Her sleep returned. The heaviness she had lived with for months lifted quietly, without drama or explanation, only relief. Padre Pio was careful to emphasize that not every black rosary is dangerous. Many are holy and prayerful. The danger lies in unknown or questionable origins, especially those acquired from estate sales, antique shops, or private collections without any spiritual context. A rosary's appearance can deceive. Beauty does not guarantee holiness. When the source is unclear, prudence becomes an act of faith. This was the heart of Padre Pio's warning, not fear of color, but respect for the unseen history an object may carry.
The second warning attributed to Padre Pio was even more emotionally charged because it involved a color deeply rooted in Catholic symbolism. Red, in the Church's tradition, represents the blood of Christ, the sacrifice of the martyrs, and the fire of divine love. Properly understood and rightly used, red carries profound spiritual meaning. Yet Padre Pio warned that this same symbolism can be distorted when intention is corrupted. He explained that while many red rosaries are entirely legitimate, certain dark blood-red rosaries, especially those of unknown origin, had been deliberately used in rituals that twisted sacred imagery into something contrary to Christian prayer. The danger was not the color itself, but how its symbolism had been misappropriated and misused. One deeply moving case involved a family who had written to Padre Pio in distress. Their home, once peaceful, had become a place of constant tension. The father, previously gentle and patient, was plagued by sudden bursts of anger he could not control. The mother suffered from persistent anxiety and exhaustion. Their teenage son developed severe insomnia, while their youngest child became inexplicably afraid to enter certain rooms of the house. Nothing seemed to help. Medical tests were normal, counseling offered no answers. Prayer, though sincere, felt strained and heavy. When the family finally consulted Padre Pio, he asked a question that caught them off guard. "What hangs in your prayer room?" The mother hesitated,
then mentioned a richly crafted red rosary hanging near their home altar. It had been given as a gift, an antique piece admired for its beauty and intensity of color. Padre Pio immediately identified it as the source of spiritual disturbance. He explained that the rosary had been used in practices that mixed Catholic prayers with foreign invocations, creating what he called spiritual confusion. He instructed them to remove the rosary and have their home blessed by a priest. They followed his guidance without delay. The change was not dramatic, but it was unmistakable. Within weeks, the father's anger softened. Sleep returned to the household. The child's fear faded. A quiet sense of peace settled back into the home. Padre Pio reminded them that sacred symbols carry weight. When their meaning is distorted, their influence can wound rather than heal. This warning was never meant to inspire fear, but to call families to vigilance, protecting the spiritual atmosphere of their homes with wisdom, prayer, and discernment. Of all the cautions attributed to Padre Pio, the third is considered the most serious, not because it is the most dramatic, but because it is the most widespread today. This warning concerns hybrid and multicolored rosaries, objects that appear creative, inclusive, or spiritually fashionable, yet quietly undermine the very nature of Christian prayer. These rosaries often combine multiple colors, unconventional materials, and unfamiliar symbols. Some include beads shaped like eyes, charms meant to ward off negativity, crystals claimed to hold special energies, or crucifixes altered with symbols drawn from non-Christian traditions. They are frequently marketed as meaningful, universal, or spiritually enhanced. Padre Pio referred to these objects with a sober phrase, spiritual confusion. Prayer, he taught, is not a vague spiritual exercise. It is a direct act oriented toward God. The Rosary, in particular, is a clearly defined devotion, meditation on the life of Christ through the intercession of the Blessed Virgin Mary. When that clarity is blurred, prayer loses its direction. Padre Pio warned that prayer must be directed, not blended. Hybrid rosaries attempt to merge incompatible spiritual systems, Christian devotion mixed with talismans, amulets, or symbolic elements rooted in entirely different understandings of the divine. While these objects may appear harmless or even well-intentioned, they introduce conflicting meanings into what should be a single, focused act of faith. This confusion, Padre Pio explained, does not usually result in dramatic spiritual attacks. Instead, it weakens prayer quietly. Devotion becomes distracted, focus dissolves. The Rosary no longer leads the soul upward, but inward, toward sensation, aesthetics, or vague spiritual feelings rather than trust in God. What makes this warning especially urgent today is the modern spiritual marketplace. Online shops and social media platforms are filled with rosaries advertised as energy cleansing, protective, or universally spiritual. They are often beautifully designed and emotionally appealing, presented as bridges between traditions rather than clear expressions of faith. Padre Pio would have seen this trend as particularly dangerous, not because of malice, but because of compromise. When everything is blended, nothing is truly chosen. Christian prayer, he insisted, requires clarity of intention and humility of heart, not spiritual experimentation. He warned that when rosaries begin to resemble amulets rather than sacramentals, they cease to function as instruments of grace. They may promise protection, balance, or harmony, but they ultimately disconnect the soul from the personal relationship with God that prayer is meant to foster. This is why Padre Pio considered hybrid rosaries the most troubling of all. not because they are openly opposed to faith, but because they quietly replace it with confusion, wrapped in beauty and modern spirituality. And this confusion, once welcomed into the home, rarely announces itself. It simply settles in, softly, attractively, and unnoticed.
Padre Pio taught that when a sacred object carries spiritual confusion, its effects are rarely dramatic or obvious. There are no loud signs, no sudden crises that point clearly to a cause. Instead, the disturbance reveals itself through subtle, ordinary changes, things easily dismissed as stress, fatigue, or coincidence. He identified several warning signs that deserve quiet attention and prayerful discernment. The first is a resistance to prayer. This does not mean a loss of faith, but a strange heaviness when attempting to pray, especially the Rosary. Words feel dry, distractions multiply, the desire to pray fades without explanation. The second sign is constant tension within the home. Minor disagreements escalate quickly. Peace feels fragile. Even moments of calm seem temporary, as if something unseen is pressing against the atmosphere of the household. Third are sleep disturbances. Nightmares, insomnia, or waking with exhaustion despite adequate rest can signal spiritual unrest, particularly when these patterns begin after introducing a new religious object into the home. Fourth, children or pets may react before adults do. Children may become fearful of certain rooms or objects. Pets may avoid specific areas or behave anxiously without an obvious cause. Padre Pio believed that the spiritually sensitive often perceive imbalance first. The fifth sign is a persistent interior unease. This is not fear, but a quiet discomfort, an intuition that something is off, even when life appears outwardly normal. Finally, there is avoidance of prayer itself. You may find yourself unconsciously distancing from prayer spaces or postponing devotional practices you once embraced. Padre Pio offered a sober reminder for these moments. The danger is not how dramatic it feels, but how normal it looks. These signs are not meant to provoke fear or suspicion, but reflection. When peace erodes slowly, discernment becomes an act of love, protecting the spiritual health of the home before confusion takes root. One of the most troubling aspects of spiritual interference, as Padre Pio explained, is how quietly it works. It does not create problems out of nothing. Instead, it causes a gradual erosion of peace, weakening the foundations that already exist. Small irritations become patterns. Ordinary stress deepens into constant fatigue. Minor disagreements slowly reshape relationships. Padre Pio taught that spiritually compromised objects often amplify existing weaknesses rather than introduce new ones. This is why their influence is so difficult to identify. The resulting struggles feel natural, human, easily explained by daily life rather than spiritual imbalance. A woman named Martha, who corresponded with Padre Pio, offered a powerful example. Over nearly 2 years, her once harmonious household deteriorated. Financial pressure mounted without clear cause. Emotional distance replaced warmth. Prayer felt increasingly heavy. Nothing seemed dramatic enough to raise alarm, yet everything felt wrong. Only later did she recall a collection of rosaries she had purchased from an estate sale, attracted by their unusual colors and craftsmanship. Padre Pio advised her to remove them and replace them with simple, properly blessed rosaries from a trusted source. The change was not immediate, but it was unmistakable. Peace returned gradually. Relationships softened. Stability followed. The turning point came not through fear, but discernment, the quiet courage to remove what no longer belonged. Padre Pio never responded to spiritual concerns by spreading fear. His guidance was always practical, calm, and rooted in faith. When he suspected that a religious object might be causing spiritual disturbance, he offered clear steps meant to restore peace, not anxiety. First, he advised making a simple inventory of spiritual items in the home. This was not about suspicion, but awareness, knowing where objects came from, why they were acquired, and how they were being used. Sacred items should never be forgotten decorations, but conscious aids to prayer. Second, Padre Pio recommended a blessing by a priest for any rosary or religious object with an unclear origin. A proper blessing reclaims the object for its true purpose and removes any previous misuse. However, when an object caused persistent unease or clearly carried troubling elements, Padre Pio advised respectful disposal rather than continued use. This was never done casually. Disposal was accompanied by prayer, acknowledging God's authority over all things. The traditional methods he supported were burning or burying the object, returning it reverently to the elements. Finally, Padre Pio urged simplicity. What should replace questionable items were rosaries that are simple, traditional, and properly blessed, preferably obtained from trusted Catholic sources. A humble wooden rosary prayed with faith, he taught, holds far greater power than the most ornate object treated without reverence. His solution was never fear, but clarity, prayer, and trust in God's grace.
Padre Pio's final teaching on the Rosary was both firm and liberating. He reminded the faithful that the Rosary is not a talisman, not a charm that works automatically by its presence. Its power does not reside in beads, colors, or materials. The true strength of the Rosary flows from faith, intention, and grace. Without faith, it becomes an object. Without intention, it becomes routine. Without grace, it becomes empty ritual. But when prayed with humility and trust, even the simplest rosary becomes a spiritual weapon, not against imagined threats, but against despair, division, and fear. Padre Pio warned that superstition weakens devotion just as surely as neglect. To fear an object more than to trust God is to misunderstand the heart of prayer. The Rosary does not protect because it is possessed, but because it is prayed. His most famous words remain the safest guide through every spiritual concern. Pray, hope, and don't worry. This teaching calls not for anxiety, but for reverence, not for suspicion, but for discernment. When the Rosary is honored for what it truly is, a path toward Christ through Mary, it becomes what Padre Pio always intended, an instrument of peace, truth, and divine mercy. As we come to the end of this reflection, let us pause, not in fear, but in quiet awareness. Discernment is not about suspicion, it is about love for truth and protection of what is sacred. If this message spoke to your heart, I invite you to leave a simple comment below. Pray for discernment. Let it be a shared intention, a gentle prayer offered together. If you feel called, please like, share, and subscribe. These small actions help this message reach others who may be seeking clarity, peace, or reassurance in their faith journey. Above all, may this reflection be received in a spirit of blessing. May your home be filled with peace. May your prayer be steady and sincere, and may your heart remain anchored in trust rather than fear. We close with this truth, quietly and confidently held. The Rosary remains heaven's gift when used with faith and wisdom.